Big surprises everywhere. Welcome to Sapa Inca Football, where today we are looking at the first and second rounds of the World Cup from a statistical perspective, as promised with the original nature of my channel. We've seen records be broken, managers sacked, big overperformance and underperformance, and so much more, and we will try to analyze every team's chances and takeaways going into the last game of the group stages and guess the best third place teams and matchups. While XG is much better at measuring the performance of a team over the long term rather than the short, they can still tell you how a game would go, on average, if you played the same game with the same players and the same shots like 100 times. And over 2 games, it's twice as useful. So let's get into it. Let's start with Group A. Mexico and South Africa, pure one-way traffic after the red card where South Africa offered absolutely nothing throughout the game. Meanwhile, South Korea dominated the Czech Republic and rightfully came back from 1-0 down to win 2-1 on opening day, as their pressure was simply too much for the Czechs. 2.3 to 0.83, and the 2-1 real score is very easy on the eyes for someone like me, and hopefully fans of this channel as well. You'd think you would see Patrick Schick stick around for a 95th minute winner, much like he does for Leverkusen, but instead he came off in the 64th minute. I expected South Africa to put up more of a fight after finishing above Nigeria in their qualifying group, as well as the chemistry between the players. Against both Mexico and the Czechs, 6 starters played together for the Mamelodi Sundowns, and indeed they did well to adjust in the second half and fight back against the Czechs. However, neither side deserved to win that game, while Mexico took advantage of a key defensive error and their own defensive strength at home to keep the Koreans at bay, with the mistake handing them a victory in what could have easily been a 0-0 otherwise. Expect a rotated Mexico, now that they topped the group, to potentially give Czechia a chance to draw or sneak a win, and South Africa to give it their all against the superior South Korea, ditching their usual low block and switching to an aggressive 4-3-3 with Lyle Foster starting for the first time, as they need a win to move on. In Group B, we saw a free-spirited Canada unable to break down Bosnia, and Bosnia getting good chances on the counter for a fully deserved 1-1 draw, countered by her first big XG underperformance, where Switzerland carved up Qatar but was undone by a late own goal. Ironically, Qatar now have more points at this World Cup than the one that they hosted, but they can't get away with conceding 3 XG per game, and they fully expected Qatar to sink like a stone and concede a ton, which Canada did the following week by demolishing them 6-0 in an unforgiving encounter against 9 men, creating 4.6 XG, and relegating Qatar to training cones. I figured Switzerland would cash in their XG against Bosnia, which they did in their own 4-1 win, now overperforming their XG by 2 goals in a perfect case of regression to the mean. Switzerland and Canada will now play an electric game to top the group as their rampant attacks look to undo the other, but I tipped Switzerland's discipline and experience to get them a win, while Bosnia should be able to capitalize on a destroyed, demoralized Qatar to secure a third-place ticket to the round of 32 with 4 points. For Group C, a perfectly balanced game between Brazil and Morocco, as Carlo Ancelotti has finally unlocked Vinny Jr.'s talent for Brazil, followed by a routine win against Haiti. Haiti will feel hard done by after fighting for a deserved result with Scotland in their first World Cup game since 1974, but ultimately Scotland won the XG coin toss. It could have easily been a draw or a win for Haiti. Expect Haiti to score at least 1 goal against Morocco for all their hard work up to now. It would be very special for them. For Scotland, winning by the minimum difference against Haiti does not fare well for their third place chances now that they lost to Morocco in a game where they were outclassed, as now they face a hungry Brazil team trying to top the group, and goal difference among the 3-point teams will be very competitive. Then in Group D, the US demolished Paraguay at home in a scoreline I did not expect, given how defensive and pragmatic Paraguay were in qualifiers over the last 2 years. Paraguay had the second best defense in South American qualifiers, only conceding 10 goals in 18 games. The early own goal just demoralized them, forced them to chase the game instead of defending the 0-0, and they just collapsed as Balogun's individual brilliance carved through their defense, leading the US to overperform their XG twice over. However, if there is one thing XG can capture, it's Pochettino's trademark intensity, which they showed by recording 10 high turnovers in the opposition third and forcing Paraguay into rare mistakes. The US continued this intensity against Australia in a routine 2-0 win to top the group confirmed for the hosts. And the big story of this World Cup so far is that Turkey let me down. In 2020, they were tipped as dark horses and they flopped. In 2024, they actually did pretty well for themselves, but without that label. Now their strongest claim to dark horse fame was a brilliantly developing Arda Güler and Kenan Yildiz, and they couldn't do anything. Just like 2022, where they turned what they should have been 0-0s into ugly 1-0 wins, last week's Australia completely defied XG with pure 5-4-1 mid-block pragmatism. Australia fully gave Turkey the ball, having the third lowest possession of any team in the first round, only ahead of Cape Verde and DR Congo, which both happened to get points. But were Turkey able to do anything with it? Nope. A whopping 30 shots, but only 2 big chances and 1.36 XG to show for it, a total Ghana almost matched with 1 good chance all game. With only a low speculative 0.04 XG per shot, it's actually not surprising that they didn't score at all. They played right into Australia's trap as he scored from 2 smart counters. The Sapa Inca tidbit here is Australia's insane luck with backup goalkeepers. The headlines are all about how Australia coach Popovic benched Matt Ryan to start young backup keeper Patrick Beach out of nowhere, only for him to make a few saves and even launch the counterattack for the opener. But this is not the first time Australia benefited from a backup keeper. 4 years ago, Graham Arnold replaced Ryan with A-League journeyman Andrew Redmayne for only his 4th game ever for the Socceroos, only for him to dance and wiggle to psych out the Peruvians and make us lose on penalties, lose our coach, and lose our golden era. Again, just a teaser for another day, but the idea is Australia can do great things by just pulling from their goalkeeper reserves. The worst part is that Turkey repeated this again against Paraguay, the exact team that are 0-0 and 1-0 specialists. Just as I expected, they did not let the USMNT break them, and they returned to their exact same pragmatic plan against Turkey. They went up early through a player Galarza who didn't even play against the US, a big shot from 20 yards out, and they returned to their pragmatic low block, only needing to defend the lead. And this is exactly what they did in qualifiers with great success. Even when they dropped to 10 men, they didn't flinch, containing Güler by having Galarza, Andres Cubas, and Diego Gomez take turns marking him, and packing the central channels and forcing Turkey out wide. As of today, the heartbreaking statistic is that Turkey have taken the most shots at the World Cup out of any team, 30 shots against Australia and 32 shots against Paraguay, for a total of 62 shots and 3.53 expected goals. They should have scored 3 or 4 goals against these teams on paper. However, when your XG after 60 shots is only 3.5, that means you're doing something wrong. Most of these shots were very speculative and outside the box, more so just shooting randomly instead of working to create a good chance due to the way the Australians and Paraguayans set up. While the XG may be the same, there is a difference between the team taking 5 0.2 XG shots and 20 0.05 XG shots. In the former, using basic binomial math, the chances of not scoring any of them are only 33%, and the chances of scoring at least 1 goal are 67%. In the latter, the chances of not scoring any of them are 36%, and the chances of scoring at least 1 goal drop to 64%. While the percentage drop may be minimal, the mathematical idea here is that the further out you shoot, if you don't have outside-the-box shooting specialists, and the opposition is expert at packing in and blocking or saving everything from distance, that hill is much harder to climb. That 3% dip is everything. By failing to adjust tactics from the Australia game to Paraguay, despite being similar teams on paper, Turkey knocked themselves out. But I do hope they can give the USA a good game, as they can better play their usual game against them. In Group E, we saw Germany get a 7-1 win over Curacao in a game where the latter were clearly just happy to be there, and a result that didn't tell us much about how Germany would fare against more experienced teams, like the Ivory Coast and Ecuador. But then Germany backed their stat padding up with a crucial late 2-1 win over the Ivory Coast to top the group, thanks to Dennis Undav coming off the bench and bagging the brace, perhaps their most pure striker since Klose. Now that they top the group, they can rotate against Ecuador, who is in a similar crisis as Turkey, despite being a completely different type of team. Check out my video praising Ecuador for more. In the other game to Group E, Ivory Coast and Ecuador were neck and neck until the final minutes, and it shows in the XG battle. Ecuador hit the crossbar twice, and the Ivory Coast had their own big chances. But it was decided by one sheer bout of physicality. This won't show up in the highlights, but in the 88th minute, Galatasaray center back Wilfried Singo wins a brutal shoulder-to-shoulder battle on the edge of its own box, lets the ball go out of bounds to stop an Ecuadorian attack, and screams at his opponent's face like he just scored a hat-trick. He's pumping with all adrenaline in the world. The coach Emer Sefei sees this, takes out Due for Cousino, move Singo to right back, and then just let Singo run all the way into the final third, beating everyone before squaring it to Diallo, who placed it absolutely perfect in the bottom left corner. For my dark horses Ecuador, they were just on the wrong side of one choice moment and substitution. And as you can see, the coach Fei actually moved Singo to right back against Germany because that one play worked so well. So then they expected Ecuador to run up the score against Curacao, just like Germany, because the Ivory Coast definitely would as well, and goal difference would change everything. But then the offensive frailties showed. When they are not tested by a superior team that allows them to press and defend and counter, they struggle being the fully dominant side against minnows, leading Curaçaoan goalkeeper Eloy Room, who plays in the USA 2nd Division, to get 15 saves against them. Some of them were really agonizing for Ecuador, and unlike Turkey, who were forced to speculate from distance, Ecuador got in really good positions and created 6 big chances. The problem is that Valencia and others kept shooting straight at Room or otherwise skied it, which is just an absolutely tragic, unlucky game that is not on the coach Becachese at all, while it is a historic point for Curaçao. Ecuador now have to beat a rotated Germany, where they can hopefully play like Ecuador again, and find a way to score a goal and keep another clean sheet, because the draw will most likely knock them out. While defense wins trophies, sometimes defense, like Pacho and Hincapié, just doesn't get you out of the group stage. Now in Group F, everyone talked about how Tunisia did so bad that they sacked their manager after one game. Believe it or not, Tunisia did not concede a single goal in their World Cup qualifiers, keeping 10 clean sheets. However, unlike Ecuador, who had to play against very good teams every week, the opposition of Namibia, Liberia, Malawi, Equatorial Guinea, and Sao Tome and Principe doesn't tell us anything about how they would fare in a tournament like this. As a tweet by a Tunisian fan highlights, the coach Sabri Lamouchi played a brand new 5-3-2 that their team wasn't used to or never played at all, benched all wingers and forwards to play an outfield purely made of midfielders and defenders, and played all their defenders with the wrong positions and profiles, and the subs were even worse, ending with a double pivot of 2 number 10s. This complete tactical confusion is what led to his prompt dismissal, and while the XG shows that they should have only lost by 1 goal, the strike partnership of Isak and Gyökeres is one of the scariest in football, and goalkeeper Chamak was just unable to deal with them, making 2 errors on the night and leading to their complete unraveling. Meanwhile, the Netherlands and Japan shared a point in a hard-fought battle where there were no big chances and neither side cracked even 1 XG, but great finishing from both sides as Coman's possession was stymied by Moriyasu's low block, and it continues Japan's streak of getting big results against big European teams at World Cups. I expected a new-look Tunisia to give both the Netherlands and Japan trouble, as their new emergency coach Herbert Renard won AFCON with Zambia and the Ivory Coast, so he is a specialist with African teams, and he was the only coach to beat Argentina in 2022 with Saudi Arabia. However, this hype came to naught as Tunisia got completely blown out by a very well-oiled Japan, as the new team and new goalkeeper looked clueless, and Japan now having scored 6 goals at the World Cup despite only having under 3 XG total. The Netherlands continues to overperform their XG with a ruthless 5-1 win over Sweden, completely undoing Potter's goal difference advantage for the 3rd place playoff and taking advantage of Sweden's midfield man marking, which was a complete mistake against Gravenberch and Reinders. The midfielders stayed narrow and the Dutch fullbacks had all the time in the world to cross. The Tunisians are wrecked and the Dutch are flying, so expect a rousing win there to top the group. Japan are also hungry, but both are overperforming their XG, so at some point, the Netherlands and Japan need to have a slow day at the office, just like Ecuador against Curaçao or Spain against Cape Verde. It might happen against Sweden or later, but it will happen before they leave the cup. Group G is another group of pure draws at first, with a 1-1 draw between Belgium and Egypt and the 2-2 thriller between Iran and New Zealand being perfectly fair results on the pitch, even if you would expect the former teams to beat the latter teams. While Belgium won the XG battle against Iran, without Doku creating chaos on the right, their attack was turgid, stale, and predictable, with everything coming from the left. Just look at this shot map. And Iran parking a perfect bus and limiting them to only 1 big chance. They now have to go and beat a New Zealand team that just lost to Egypt, but still gave them problems in the first half, until they ran out of steam in the second. Iran knows that a draw will most likely make them a go-through, regardless of the Belgium game, so they will play for one, and Egypt as well. The only way Belgium can top this group is blowing out New Zealand, but with 53 shots since their last goal, that is looking less and less likely. Group H is yet another group with many draws, and you've already heard so much about 40-year-old Bosnia and the incredible performance they've had and everything, so I won't dwell on it. But you can't survive this onslaught every game, and while I expected Cape Verde to regress to the mean against Uruguay, who also have run up a finishing deficit against Saudi Arabia with 27 shots in that game, they did, but their offense didn't, capitalizing on the free kick and a Muslera mistake to get a 2-2 draw. Uruguay is now in deep trouble as Cape Verde are now flying and can easily beat Saudi Arabia on the final day with all this good vibes around to make knockouts. 4 years ago, I thought that their Araujo, Valverde, Nunez spine would set them up for success over the next few years, but nowadays it's just Valverde and 10 okay players around him, so them struggling is not a huge surprise. As for Spain, who played with their backup wingers out of necessity on opening day, once Yamal returned to the wing and brought back their directness and intention, they beat Saudi Arabia 4-0, so they should continue that against Uruguay and top the group without any problems. In Group I, both wins in the first round were straightforward and dominant, but both winners needed adjustments to come alive. Before the tournament, France were usually seen as having the most blessed frontline in World Cup history, with Mbappe, Olise, and Dembele as the three best forwards in the world on their day. But the first half was not like that at all. They recorded a miserable 0.03 XG from one total wayward shot in the first half, as Olise kept drifting into the middle and crowding Mbappe and Doué, leading Senegal's midfield to easily press them into meaningless sideways passing. At halftime, all Deschamps had to do was officially move Olise into the middle, keep Dembele out wide, and it paid dividends as Olise set up the opener and Mbappe scored a brace. As for Norway and Iraq, one-way traffic there in both XG and real life as Holland got a brace from inside a 6-yard box. France vs Iraq was one-way traffic again, with the XG matching the result, and a spirited attacking performance where Holland kept bullying the Senegalese defense, his finishing ultimately deciding a tight battle. Expect Senegal to qualify with a win against Iraq, and France vs Norway to be a bumper top-of-the-table clash with no rotation. Then in Group J, for Argentina vs Algeria, XG is not even worth discussing, as it was the one-man Messi show, and you know how he defies it his whole career. Conceding 3 to the GOAT is nothing to worry about. Same for Austria, even if they would have also lost 3-0 had Messi scored his penalty. Jordan shouldn't be a problem for a rotated Argentina, even so they made both Algeria and Austria work for their victories. For Austria versus Jordan, Jordan still equalized, and to find a way through, Austria needed a corner own goal and a penalty to seal it late. And for Jordan versus Algeria, Jordan took a 1-0 lead that was only undone by 2 late set-piece goals from Algeria. While they lost both games, they are not a free 3 points. This team actually reached the Asian Cup final 2 years ago, beating South Korea along the way and losing only to Qatar in the final. Austria versus Algeria will now decide who moves on automatically, and Rangnick's counter-press is perfectly suited for Algeria's slow passive build-up, but anything can happen in one game. In Group K, despite all the usual noise every 2 years about whether Ronaldo should still start for Portugal, he made up for his whole team's performance against the DR Congo with a brace against Uzbekistan, breaking his duck at the big summer tournament that marks his first open play goals at a World Cup or Euros since Germany at Euro 2020. While he lost to Colombia, I'm not surprised by Congo's resilient performance against Portugal, as they knocked out very talented Cameroon and Nigerian teams in back-to-back World Cup playoffs to get here in the first place. Expect them to beat Uzbekistan to guarantee their third-place spot, while Portugal and Colombia is a genuine toss-up given Colombia's progress under Nestor Lorenzo, who deservedly reached the Copa America final in 2024. Lastly, Group L, England started things off with a rampant 4-2 win over Croatia, showing how easily they can exploit an aggressive high line and create openings there, while their ensuing 0-0 against Ghana was a reality check in how good they are dealing with low blocks. Meanwhile, Ghana edged a narrow 1-0 win over Panama after exploiting a very precise counterattack ending in a tap-in worth a whopping 0.97 XG, the one shot being more than Panama's XG all game, despite their possession and shot dominance, limiting Panama's XG to 0.73 and 0 real goals, and England's to 1.36 and 0 real goals again, despite giving them 79% of the ball, shows the disciplined low block in action. Croatia, returning to a back four after their failed highline experiment, edged a narrow win over a toothless Panama and makes Croatia versus Ghana a potential 50-50. Although Ghana is safe with 4 points, and Croatia also only needs a draw to advance, so 0-0 incoming. That's all for today. Subscribe for more of my takes.